participation in Chamorro cultural art started here in just before the Festival of Pacific Arts in New Zealand in 1976, and my family and I participated in the festival representing Guam, and at that time Guam had no indigenous cultural performance art that represented the culture before the arrival of the Spanish, and and the experience in New Zealand for me was a most profound one, because when we arrived in New Zealand for the festival, we were exposed to other Pacific Islanders who brought to the festival their indigenous performance art, ceremonial attire, songs and chants and dances. And it became very evident to me at that time that all of that was missing from our culture here. And I returned to Guam and secretly began to do some research to find out what happened. How did all of this disappear from our culture? So it meant having to study our history and what led to the disappearance of indigenous cultural performance art. That was 1976, and in the 1980s, more and more people here began to have an interest in Chamorro performance art. And so from 1976 until the middle to late 1990s, we focused specifically on just research and amassing the necessary information in order to do our reconstruction. I think with regard to our group, I think it would be safe to say that although we do have a multidisciplinary approach to our research, and we monitor very closely what the scholars and the academics are able to provide, we have recognized that there is data available in the oral histories of other islanders whose ancestors had contact with our ancestors. More specifically, the people who are from the islands of Puluwat and Satawal, they still retain a lot of their oral history because they still continue to sail. So we realized that in the lyrical content of their songs and in their stories, there is information that is not available from any other source about our ancestors and their contact with our ancestors. And so we draw on this as well in our work, and because what we've had to do is reconstruct what we call traditional style performance art. This particular information is owned by the people from these particular families on these islands, and so what is required for us to retrieve it, to glean that information from their oral history, is a more personal relationship with the individuals that hold the information. So we have to establish very close personal relationships, and we need to get them to understand why we require this information, for them to share it with us. We recognize that they own the information. There are many reasons why we do what we do. We want to honor our ancestors in a way that they would recognize, and we want to address identity reconstruction, the issue of identity reconstruction here. We have acquired, with regard to our other Pacific Island neighbors, we've acquired a reputation outside of Marianas for cultural plagiarism, and that's something that we very passionately want to deal with. We want other islanders to understand that we have our own performance art, and that we don't need to borrow from Polynesian cultures in order to express ourselves. We refer to ourselves as a chant group because in order to mainly to differentiate ourselves from the entertainment groups that exist presently, and what we wanted to initiate was let's see. We wanted to begin a community-based initiative to teach Chamorro history using an indigenous technique, which would be chant and the accompanying dances that go with that. So in conjunction with the University of Guam, we started teaching our material in 1998, and so our class is kind of a hybrid between a Western teaching method where we actually teach in a classroom, and part indigenous method where the history is learned using songs and dances. And these are songs that that contain historical information and cultural information that are from the information that's from the time period before the arrival of the Spanish. One other aspect of our mission is of course language preservation and the teaching of language. We are not interested at all at this particular point in time in doing something for the tourism industry, because there are things within our own indigenous community that need to be addressed first, and so we focus specifically on that right now, and our main goal is we want very much to reorient our people in what we feel is a more culturally accurate direction. Not, or reorient them away from Polynesian performance art and the way it's used to express our identity, and orient them to something that is indigenous to this particular region. You see, there's this cultural movement that's going on right now as we speak, and it's been going on since the 1980s. And within that cultural movement is a smaller sub-movement of individuals who tend to refer to themselves as they're more traditionalist in their view. And we look for individuals who are thinking along these lines. For instance, there's Mr. Robin Tiaco, who's interested in building a traditional Chamorro sailing canoe, and others. There are some others that are now interested in the same thing, and we lend support to them whenever we can. We see what we do as being complementary to the efforts of these other traditionally minded individuals.